So what's the difference? Ship 28 versus Starship 30, more improvements from SpaceX. Booster 11 rollout soon, launch in May possible, second tower progress, and SpaceX reveals its next-gen EVA suit. It's Spacewalk time. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. This is yet another packed episode. There are so many prototypes, the second tower enters the second phase of construction, and new starbase pictures from orbit. Intrigued? I hope so. Follow me. Welcome back to Starbase, where the pace of change is as rapid as the starships that launch from here. A common reason why you and I find this place so fascinating. It is almost hard to believe, but if everything goes according to plan, we could see the fourth Starship launch in just under 3 weeks. While the mission itself won't differ much from the last one in terms of flight trajectory or the sequence of events, the most significant changes will be visible right here on the ground. It will be the first launch to use the new horizontal ground support system, which SpaceX has been working on for months. It's a complete redesign. Following the harsh lessons from the first flight, we saw the arrival and installation of 9 bullet tanks. These tanks are better suited for storing cryogenic liquids compared to SpaceX's original do-it-yourself farm setup. Don't get me wrong, they worked as long as you didn't throw concrete at them or blasted them with shockwaves generated by 33 angry Raptor engines. The recent flurry of activity in this area suggests that both the wet dress rehearsal and the launch itself will make use of these new tanks, utilizing both liquid nitrogen and potentially liquid oxygen. Our photographer John recently caught the installation of an additional vaporizer in front of the new tank farm. With 5 vaporizers now in place, each one appears to be designated for a single liquid oxygen tank. Curiously, for some unknown reason, 2 of them were installed horizontally. Typically, a vaporizer converts cryogenic liquids into gas. As the name suggests, it vaporizes things. This process happens as the liquid passes through a really long tube with fins, which helps to increase the surface area for heat transfer. The external heat warms the tube, gradually heating the liquid until it vaporizes into gas. This gas is then used to pressurize the tanks themselves. Without it, as the propellant rushes out during Starship fueling, the tanks would implode due to the void created by the emptying fluid. That would be less than optimal. Work is also progressing at the launch tower. Starting from the bottom, we've noticed the first signs of primer being applied to the legs, which suggests that a full repaint of the structure isn't far behind. This is usually a good indicator that we are approaching a launch. Moving up the tower, a similar change can be observed at the booster quick disconnect. Since the last launch, workers have not only replaced the internal hoses of the booster's fueling system, but also swapped out the front door. It'll be interesting to see how these modifications affect the reusability aspect of the orbital launch mount. Ideally, with each flight, we should witness less and less need for refurbishment. Not only do the starships undergo a steady evolution, but everything around them does as well. Looking at the Mechazilla arms, also known as the chopsticks, there has been even more testing in the last few days. The tower can hardly hold its arms still these days, excitement is in the air. Recently, SpaceX engineers have added even more padding to these arms. While it isn't really required for Flight 4, it is added to see how well it will hold up after being close to the 33 Raptor engines during launch. After all, the boosters will need to be caught by the tower just after it endured a launch. The catch will have to happen just minutes after the rocket leaves the pad. 0 time for refurbishment. What do you think? Will SpaceX actually attempt to catch the boosters this year, or is this another example of Elon's famously optimistic timelines? Leave your opinions in the comments. As for the vehicles intended for Flight 4, things are starting to get interesting again. Currently, Ship 29 still remains in the high bay. However, a closer look reveals that it's only missing a few tiles here and there, suggesting it should be ready for rollout quite soon. Though logically it might make more sense to move the booster first, as after all it is the base of the full stack. We even had some strong indications that a rollout was on the horizon. Road closures were announced for both May 3rd and 4th, giving us hope. However, in the end, our dedicated photographers camped out, eagerly awaiting the appearance of Booster 11, only to return empty-handed. It wasn't moved after all. But we did get a unique opportunity to snap some rare shots of the inside of the Mega Bay. On the right, we can clearly see the next flight prototype, already equipped with its hot staging ring. New road closures have been announced for May 7th and 8th, so it is quite possible that by the time you're watching this, Booster 11 has made its journey along Highway 4 to the launch site. Once it arrives, it will likely pass by the upper stage Starship designated for Flight 5, Ship 30. We'll discuss its potential test campaign in a second, but first let's check out how it differs from the previously launched Ship 28. With these prototypes being so close to each other, you wouldn't expect many changes between them, but there are some. Starting at the top, you'll notice a slightly different pattern of heat tiles on the nose cone of Ship 30. Some tiles that were single piece on Ship 28 had been split into two. However, following the ongoing saga with the heat tiles of Ship 29, this change might be temporary. It is very likely that this prototype will also undergo the heat tile surgery. Moving down, you might notice that it's missing the 4 square-shaped covers near the top of its forward flaps. The antennas are still there, they just haven't been covered yet, so they are here to stay. After all, this antenna improvement worked extremely well. Remember the live footage of the ship's re-entry? That system upgrade was responsible for this epic view. However, the set of antennas that were previously positioned at the base of the nose cone, hidden under 6 heat tiles, has been relocated. They've been moved down beneath the payload bay and reshaped to resemble an emerald. It's a bit disappointing to see this change, as the nose cone antennas had become quite iconic and now it just looks a bit empty. On the other hand, it is important to remember that Starship's design priorities are functionality and, in the future, safety for carrying humans to Mars, not aesthetics. Regarding other minor changes, the camera that monitored the flap has been removed. Though don't worry, the one inside the flaps is still there. The absence of certain welding marks on Ship 30 also suggests that there are some internal structural differences compared to earlier prototypes. The payload bay door remains identical, but just below it we might be looking at one of the most important modifications. Remember how during Flight 3 Ship 28 was uncontrollably spinning when it did its waltz in space? SpaceX very likely added 2 roll vents, allowing Starship to stabilize itself in space. There's also a new vent or some type of opening located next to the payload bay access hatch. Finally, a new vent has been added to the liquid oxygen tank. Most of these modifications seem to be focused on enhancing Starship's control authority, which will be needed for future orbital missions. As is typical with each new iteration of Starship, the most significant updates are probably internal, though obviously we can't take a look there. Regarding the testing schedule for this prototype, Cameron County had announced a road closure for May 3rd, ideally suited for a spin prime test. Yet, once again, no testing took place. Perhaps SpaceX encountered a delay which caused these closures to go unused. Don't worry, another testing window has been scheduled for May 7th with backup opportunities on May 8th and 9th. If all goes well, Ship 30 will complete a spin prime and 2 static fire tests by the end of next week. Interestingly, it appears that this could be the last prototype tested at the suborbital launch site. Do you know why? Well, it appears that the suborbital farm may be decommissioned sooner than anticipated. As the wick drain stitchers finished their work in preparation for the tower building, a new piece of equipment was spotted at the launch site. A blue drilling rig designed for creating piles using the continuous flight auger method. The what? This rig, connected to a concrete source, drills into the ground, removes the dirt, and as the auger is withdrawn, concrete flows into the created hole. A rebar cage is then inserted to reinforce the structure. If you look closely, you can actually see the rings and rebar destined for these cages. Now, before I show you a brand new Y-orbit picture of Starbase from orbit, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
Thanks, Felix. Have you ever felt unsettled knowing how easily your home address and phone number can be found online? I mean, I like you guys, but I don't like you, if you know what I mean. Shouldn't some things stay private? enter Incogni, our sponsor today, stepping in to safeguard your privacy. Your online browsing isn't secure. Most internet providers and the websites you visit track your activity and sell the data to other companies and brokers. Cybercriminals just need your name, date of birth, and social security number to steal your identity. Most data brokers gather these key details, leaving you vulnerable to scams and spam, especially if this information is sold to people's search sites that reveal personal details, including family connections. Protect your online presence from these digital intrusions using Incogni's automated data removal service. Bid farewell to your personal data lingering on various online platforms with Incogni's simple 3-step process. Sign up, grant permission, and breathe a sigh of relief. So why delay? Reclaim your online privacy today with Incogni. And here's the cherry on top. Use code Felix at the link below and snag a whopping 60% off an annual plan. Don't miss out on this chance to take back your digital footprint. Back to you, Felix.
To give us a broader view of the work, quite literally, our friends at Skyfi captured an image of Starbase from orbit for us. Nothing better than the satellite view. While the image quality isn't perfect due to the weather conditions, it still shows some intriguing details. Firstly, here you can see the aforementioned rebar and the area where construction is currently happening. The wetlands area, previously off limits, is now indistinguishable from the surrounding environment. Yes, they did receive the necessary permits. Surprisingly, there is also construction activity visible near the Gateway to Mars sign. Part of the surrounding wall has been demolished and the ground is being leveled. Yes. It seems very likely that SpaceX is preparing a parking area and access road in front of the sign. This road will not only support heavy-duty equipment soon to arrive, but maybe also allow for the transportation of tower sections. Another indication that the suborbital tank farm may be nearing removal relates to Starhopper. It was the very first prototype that achieved liftoff using a Raptor engine. After its test campaign, this little guy was repurposed as part of the launch site's infrastructure. Quite literally, it was transformed into a water tower. It started out as a water tower and then ended up as one, the full circle. Recently, Starhopper received some attention from workers. Typically, when an old prototype is suddenly brought back into focus, it hints at the end of its life. However, this time steel plates were welded onto the prototype, sparking speculation that SpaceX might be planning to relocate it. Just imagine Starhopper standing at the top of Star Factory. What a sight that would be. Ultimately, it seems that Hoppy isn't destined to move after all. Hoppy is not hopping. Instead of being lifted by a crane, it was equipped with a long pipe, similar to a weather station mast that was recently removed from one of the suborbital tanks. While this modification might be just a coincidence, it could also indicate that SpaceX is shifting necessary hardware ahead of taking down the suborbital tank farm. At this stage, it's still speculation, but a very plausible one. You can learn more about Skyfi at app.skyfi.com/explore. Fantastic website, it is incredible to see what can be done with satellite imagery. Thank you, Skyfi, you guys rock so much, worth a click. Now, before I take you to Massey's, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. While you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, including satellite, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress, and countless other extras on top. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. And on April 19th, we launched Y Life. We have cameras at Starbase and Port Canaveral. You may have seen snippets from these cameras before, but now you can watch them 24/7. And not just that. We live stream heli flights and show pictures, launches, tests, and interviews. It is packed. Thanks for watching. The final stop on our Starbase tour takes us to Massey's. Unfortunately, the weather put off our plans for a flyover, but the orbital images still shed light on some fascinating details of the site. What interests us the most here is the flame diverter. Viewing it from above, it's striking to see just how massive it is. Like, it's huge. At the end of it, there is a fresh layer of dirt where the water supply pipe was laid, leading directly to the flame bucket. The water for this system comes from these tanks. As for the bucket itself, pictures suggest that all of its pieces were already installed in the flame trench. Adjacent to the methane farm is the prototype work platform, which likely has a second function. It might be used to allow SPM transporters to bring the static fire stand above the divertor. From the ground, a look at the quick disconnect platform reveals that the connections have recently been secured with tape, hinting that they might have been purged and are now ready for the arrival of a prototype. So which prototype do you think will be tested here first? Could it be Ship 31, or will they wait for the second generation of prototypes? Share your predictions in the comments. Transitioning from Starship, we're still staying on the topic of SpaceX. If you've been keeping an eye on the space industry, you're undoubtedly familiar with Jared Isaacman. Jared sponsored the historic Inspiration 4 mission, the first fully private crewed launch. The mission was quite groundbreaking, featuring 4 private citizens orbiting Earth without a professional astronaut on board. It also helped raise hundreds of millions of dollars for St. Jude Children's Hospital. Thank you, Inspiration 4 crew. Driven by this achievement, Isaacman has set his sight on pushing the boundaries of private space exploration even further with the initiation of the Polaris program. A series of 3 missions, with each one planned to achieve even more impressive things. The first of these is called Polaris Dawn, and until recently details about it were quite sparse. But that's changed. We now have some exciting updates to share. Initially, it was announced that Polaris Dawn would feature the first ever private spacewalk, or EVA, which stands for extravehicular activity. Now, while Dragon is equipped with pressure suits designed to keep astronauts safe during launch and landings, these suits weren't made for use outside the spacecraft. This required some significant upgrades from SpaceX, and they've just revealed the new suit. At first glance, the suit might resemble the existing model, but don't be fooled. The changes are quite substantial. You're basically looking at a wearable mini spacecraft. One of the key improvements is the helmet, a 3D printed piece of equipment designed to precisely fit each astronaut's head. It now includes a camera for capturing point-of-view footage and a heads-up display that shows critical information such as the suit's pressure, temperature, and relative humidity during the spacewalk. I can't wait to see POV videos from Jared spacewalking. Besides being a bit thicker than the flight suit we all know, visually the most noticeable change is the visor. It now features a tint that functions much like sunglasses, protecting astronauts from the harsh glare of sunlight in space. The suit's body has been upgraded with special joints at the wrists and arms. These joints remain flexible until the suit is pressurized, at which point they firm up, enhancing mobility when outside the spacecraft. The materials used in the suit's construction have also been changed to offer better heat management. Now, if you compare an EVA suit used by the astronauts on the ISS to the one from SpaceX, you'll see that SpaceX's one is much slicker. This difference, however, comes mainly from the type of life support system. Where the ISS suits include bulky backpacks equipped with their own life support, cooling units, oxygen supplies, and more, SpaceX has opted for a simpler approach using a tether. This makes their suits closer to an advanced version of those used during the Gemini missions. This design approach presents both benefits and drawbacks. A key downside is the reduced mobility range. With a tether system, astronauts are limited in movement, and there's always a risk of the tether snagging or getting entangled in parts of the spacecraft. However, given Dragon's compact size, this is likely a non-issue. The advantages, however, are significant. The absence of a cumbersome backpack, which if malfunctioning could be catastrophic, is a notable plus. The tether simplifies the suit and serves as a lifeline that can be used to pull astronauts back to the spacecraft in emergencies such as vision loss, an issue that has occasionally occurred on the ISS. Moreover, the sleekness of the suit means that it can double as a regular suit inside the capsule, which is precisely how it will be used during the Polaris missions. No changing inside the capsule is needed. For future suit designs that won't connect to the capsule, I could imagine a separate life support pack attached to the suit. Maybe even a system that autonomously follows the astronaut. We also learned more about the flight profile. A Falcon 9 will launch Dragon into an elliptical orbit of 190 by 1200 kilometers or 120 by 745 Freedom miles. The spacecraft will then increase its apogee to 1400 kilometers or 870 miles, marking the highest altitude humans have reached since Apollo 17. After 7 orbits and data collection, the altitude will be reduced to 700 kilometers or 435 miles for the EVA. Conducting one from Dragon will be challenging, since the spacecraft lacks a dedicated airlock. The procedure involves all 4 crew members readying their EVA suits and depressurizing the capsule, effectively exposing it to the vacuum of space. They'll just open the door and enjoy the view. 2 crew members will exit the capsule to test the suit's capabilities in a spacewalk expected to last under 2 hours before getting back inside and repressurizing the capsule. The entire mission is scheduled to last 5 days, during which the crew will conduct over 40 experiments. These include testing the Dragon to Starlink connection, which could potentially revolutionize internet access in space. Does this count as the mobile version of Starlink? I mean, will they have to pay the extra fee for the RV contract? Despite previous delays, SpaceX remains optimistic about launching at the start of the summer, just 2 months from now. Let's keep our fingers crossed that everything goes as planned. That's it for today. Remember to smash the like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and it helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next episode. Hoppy isn't hopping. Yeah. Been purged. Oh, yeah.